You're about to enjoy a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the CEO Leading In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of CEO. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. Today, we are with Megan Thomas, the president and CEO of Catalyst San Diego and Imperial counties. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
Great. So excited to hear about you and your organization. So tell us a little bit about what you do every day.
Oh, well, there really is no what I do every day. It runs the gamut from being out in the community, working with groups, looking at food security and public safety issues, to doing accounting. We're in the middle of our audit right now.
Oh gosh, those are never fun.
Having a staff meeting where we talk about who we are as people, who we are as an organization. But Catalyst itself is a community of funders. We're a network in San Diego and Imperial counties trying to figure out how do we get the financial resources that some are privileged to have the possession of or control over into the places in our communities where they're really needed to make life better for everyone here.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about what you like to fund.
So we're not a funder, per
Okay.
se. We are, think of us as the chamber of philanthropy, right? We have about 150 members who are corporate foundations or private foundations, community foundations, giving circles, just really anybody who is holding resources for the community and trying to do good with them. They come to us for community, for collegiality, for education, and then the sort of far end of the spectrum on that is collaboration. So there are occasions where we hold funds and pass them into the community, but that's always around a collective decision-making process that's been contributed to our funder members or some of the community members.
So you're a connector.
That is absolutely correct.
The connectors of the connectors.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes, a network of networks.
Yeah. So let me just kind of go back and ask you a story about your childhood that maybe is fun, that maybe people don't know about you, just to kind of bring us back to you as a person outside of your career, a woman outside of your career. Do you have something fun to share with us?
Sure. I haven't thought about this in a while, but I was born and raised here in San Diego County. Spent the first 8 or so years of my life in Escondido, and then my family moved to Poway, which is where my parents still are. So I remember we lived on Lincoln Avenue in Escondido, and when you're 4 or 5 years old, you think the world is about as big as your little tricycle can take you. So that was my whole world. And our next door neighbor was this woman named Sally. And I think of her as this old woman, but in my head now, I think she probably wasn't particularly old. That was just sort of how I saw her. But Sally, and she didn't have children, but she was always ready for us to come over and romp around and entertain and amuse her. And I remember one day she came out, and I'm a kid growing up in Southern California, and she had these two yellow, bright, like canary yellow plastic skis. And they had clips on them. So you would wear your tennis shoes and you would clip your little tennis shoe toe in one end and heel in the other. And so as again, we'll call it 4 or 5 year old, there I was skiing around in the grass on neighbor Sally's yard in the middle of summer in San Diego. And I just think that was the fact that I remember it now, 40 years later, tells me that that was one of the moments in my life, that sort of overall experience of community and like the people around you being your people, that really formed a part of who I am and how I move around in the world today.
Now, see, if you just had a slip and slide, that would have been awesome.
There you go. We had a lot of trash bags and garden hoses that doubled for slip and slide.
I was the kid who was always trying to figure out how to, connect the bike to the wagon and things like that, just kind of like putting it all together, putting things together. I thought that was always so much fun. But yeah, I would have been the kid that had the slip and slide with us.
And I would have been the kid over at your house every day.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's awesome. I actually grew up in San Diego County too, but I was from East County. So I grew up in East County and then moved to North County in 1987. So I was like 20 when I first moved up to North County. But yeah, San Diego is really a cool little community, isn't it? Even though it's very big, but there is that smaller sort of community. And I feel like every time you turn around, you're seeing someone that you knew from way back when. And so the transplants don't know as many people as we know. Like growing up here, I wasn't actually born here. I moved when I was 6 months old, but
that pretty much grandfathers you in, I think.
Pretty much lived in San Diego my whole life, yeah. So do you have a word that describes you best?
Oh, gosh. Such an interesting question. I'll just say the thing that first came to mind was trustworthy. I hold a lot of value in relationships, and especially, as you're saying, when you live in a place for a very long time, you grow with people, right? You know people over not just years, but decades, and inevitably our lives change, and we are in different positions and circumstances with family, with work, with our roles in the community. But I like to think that I'm the same person now as I was 10 years ago, as I will be in 10 years when it comes to being in truly authentic relationships. And that's something we're working on at Catalyst as well, is this idea that historically, traditionally, the way to think about philanthropy and nonprofits was this giver and recipient relationship. And what we want to get to is the idea of a partnership, right? Folks who are in relationship share a goal towards some good being done and bring different resources to the table. Some are going to be financial resources, some are going to be experience. And in order to trust that we can move forward together, you have to trust that the person you're with is authentic. And that doesn't mean you're always going to have exactly the same opinions or about what should be done or how to do it, but it does mean that you can have a critical conversation about that and get to some sort of resolution and keep moving forward.
Well, that you want the same thing, sometimes for different reasons, but the end goal is, to have the same outcome somehow in some way, shape, or form, with collaboration, of course. That's a very good value, because I think it's really tough right now. Especially more than ever when you've got, all of these outside things that are happening. And, a lot of people are afraid to be, who they actually are. And you can't really get much done if you don't have some level of trust, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, we live in a society that has sort of said what the right type of person is to be if you want to achieve X, Y, or Z, if you want to be an elected official, or you want to be a business owner, or you want to be a teacher. You are imagined to have certain characteristics that all go back to a well of sort of what was the norm, and in our society, our hundreds of years of society, that's a white heterosexual male. And we can build out from that as to where power is embedded. But our community has many lovely and wonderful white heterosexual males, and mostly a whole bunch of other people. And so if we really want a region that is stable and resilient and thriving, we have to get to the place where there are all kinds of levels of acceptance, and we're seeing and valuing and uplifting the wisdom and power of everybody here. I mean, that's how we all move together.
And rich in diversity. Yeah. Because you can't just have one voice at the table. Mm-hmm. It never ever works. It becomes, and I'm certainly not saying that men are bullies, white heterosexual men are bullying. But if you've got one voice, it generally is a very strong voice, but then everyone else is muffled out and you can't have that collaboration. And then the truth is you're picking one thing, one way, one side, and you're not, working together. It just, honestly, in my opinion, never works.
Yeah. I mean, the science says that diverse perspectives, many perspectives gets you to a better answer.
100%.
And none of this is about anybody individually. This isn't about any particular person. This is about like the soup that we're all swimming in, and
exactly.
how do we make it richer and more delicious?
I love it. That's a great analogy. So how long have you been in this current career of yours?
I've been in the organization that I am in now, so at Catalyst, for 6.5 years. I've been in the nonprofit and philanthropic sector for 20 plus years. So basically my entire career, aside from a brief summer stint working in a cardiologist's office, which is a whole thing. That was an interesting experience. But I went to business school, and from that had the very unique experience of having the National Geographic Society offer me a job, and that was in Washington, D.C. Really did not intend to stay away from San Diego at all. But when National Geographic Society says, would you like a job? You say yes.
Yeah.
And thank you. And I'll be right there.
What did you do there? That's exciting.
Nothing that in of itself is very interesting. Just admin work. I did some event planning. I did a lot of finance, budget management, office management. But what I got was this incredible overview of what a nonprofit organization is and can be, which I will distill down to it's a business. It is. It has inputs and outputs, and KPIs, and all of these things that we're trying to meet. And we do pay our staff. I had somebody say, "If you're a nonprofit, how do you pay your people?" Well, we do take in funds,
right?
But that really set me up to understand that the value I could bring to a team was the ability to, set a path and clear all the barriers. To really bring out the best in everyone and make it possible for them to do their work well. So I've worked with attorneys and scientists and any number of different folks, and I am none of those things, but we put together amazing teams.
That's awesome. So how do you measure success in your nonprofit world?
Mm-hmm. The good that is done. No, this is a perennial question. How do you measure impact? And we find imperfect ways, set benchmarks, and that we know are leading us towards the bigger goal. Because ultimately, in the social sector, and I would include even the government sector in this, to be quite honest, is if we're looking for change, it's not just years out, but generations out. If we're trying to make sure that every child has an education where they are safe and supported and healthy, and educated for a workforce that we're developing, that's 18 years of work. So we can't measure just at that 18-year mark, especially since we're not going to know, what did that second grade program contribute to that child's outcome? But we can say, okay, we know that when kids are at a third grade reading level in third grade, they're much more likely to be successful than if they're not. And so we can say, okay, that is a really good proxy for how good this program is.
So when you're explaining all this, all I kept thinking was planting the seed. You're planting the seed. Is the sprout coming up? Mm-hmm. You're not seeing the harvest yet, of course, because it's too early. But again, planting the seed.
Yeah, very much so. And one of the things that's really incredible about this region is how connected and collaborative we are. And so if you think about, I'll just stick with education as a theme. If we think about the early childhood and Head Start programs that are so important. And I will just note that there's this interesting quirk of California that our early childhood programs that are state funded were funded through tobacco taxes. And so while it is wonderful that fewer people are smoking, there's also less money in that fund coming through to early childhood programs. So if you have one near you, support it.
Interesting. Okay.
But they have to be connected to the primary school and the secondary school and the high school and all of these things. And our people do talk to one another. And I think it is in part due to the fact that as a region, we have all these beautiful neighborhoods that you were talking about. And while some places have really large corporate headquarters and really giant foundations and these like big anchor institutions that are breathing all sorts of intellectual and financial resources into something, as a region, we are nearing 100% small businesses. We are not the home to almost any really large foundations. We have incredible healthcare, innovation, all of these things, but we have to work together. Yeah. And I think that actually makes our solutions more durable at the end of the day and makes those relationships super important.
Definitely. I didn't know about the early childhood programs being funded by a tobacco tax.
Yeah, isn't that
interesting? Well, I actually been thinking some ways to actually help some of the lower income sort of areas within my community, and there's a lot of things that you can do that just. You have to think outside the box, right?
Right.
Because there are, I mean, I think nonprofits kind of having, during the actual pandemic, they were not even thought of in so many ways. And yet it's really important to continue the foundation and planting those seeds like you were talking about. So, anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
I could literally go on and on about that right now.
I know, I could too. So tell me, personally, is there something that you failed at that you look back and you go, that was fabulous in the end because it actually did this for me?
I think that my whole career is actually set up on a misjudgment of who I wanted to be. I grew up here, sunny California. We're running around in jeans and swimsuits and flip-flops and all that. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go to a real college and I'm going to do all these things. And I imagined myself, I want to say maybe 9th grade was when this was happening in my head, as a titan of industry. You have to know this is 80s, 90s. So I imagined myself in high heels, shoulder pads for sure, strutting down the hallways, making decisions. There's that Cake song, short skirt and long jacket. That was going to be me.
Oh my gosh.
Power broker of the world. So I went to business school back east, got all the education, did all the things, signed up for the interviews, got into my first consulting firm interview, and it lasted 45 minutes, hour and a half, and I got out of that and I said, oh my God, I do not want to do that at all. This jet-setting lifestyle I was going to have was not at all congruent with who I was as a person. And that is what led me then to go to this career fair, find the National Geographic Society, and 20 years later, end up back home doing work that is meant to support a network of nonprofits, making our home all it can be for other people. And I don't know that I would have gone into any sort of career fair or what have you if I hadn't burned so hard in that interview to say, I really got to check some other things out.
Right. Well, what's interesting? I was having this conversation with a young person today, and it was we were talking about internships and trying things, because you clearly thought, this is going to happen. And then you're like, put on the brakes. That's definitely not something I want to do. I think it's really interesting that you went that far.
Yeah.
And then you went all the way to the interview and you went, oh no, what have I done kind of thing. But again, you were able to pivot. You did, you had that discipline to be able to say, I'm not going to try to do a job that I have no interest in, that I know is going to be something that I am not going to enjoy.
Yeah.
And because not everyone does that. And I was also talking about that earlier. There are some people that are doing jobs that you can clearly tell they hate.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's terrible. You got to find something you're really passionate about, because I know it sounds very cliche. Oh, it doesn't seem like work when you enjoy it, but it is true.
It is true. And you mentioned internships. I think it's really important for us to open up every opportunity for people. I won't even say young people. Young people certainly, but people who are retraining, people who are coming out of incarceration, people who are leaving the military, like anybody who is entering or contemplating entering the workforce, is how do we open up pathways for them to evolve their skills that are transferable, or develop skills, or to your point, just try things out. And there's some really good work about that happening. The County of San Diego at one point had committed to hosting, I forget the number, but a large number of internships within the county to help people, A, have some sustainable income through the summer, and B, try out what it's like to be an employee of a government entity. 0800 is a nonprofit that helps transitioning military figure out, how do I navigate in the civilian world and take extremely talented, skilled people, and then A, they have to translate their skills, but B, we also have to train the employers to recognize the translation of those skills and hire. And I could go on and on about the great programs, but I think you're right, is those intermediate steps and recognizing that like vocational training is also super important. Not everybody needs to immediately go into a 4-year program, especially when they're great family supporting jobs that are journeyman jobs.
So interestingly enough, you bring that up. So I used to be a member of the San Marcos Promise Board. Mm-hmm. And when I first actually joined it, they were all about going to college only. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a minute, what about the kids that literally will never go to college? Mm-hmm. What about them? What is their path? I think we also need to focus on figuring out how to help them become successful. Everyone has, great things that they can achieve, and it's going to look different, from one person to the next. I tell kids all the time when I'm talking to them, guess what? You've got your circle of friends, and each one of you has some path. It probably is going to vary wildly from, even if you hang out, you have a lot of the same interests. Sure. You're gonna want to do totally different things as far as a career goes. And you need to explore what those things are, and you need to try things. Again, back to, the internships and that sort of thing. It always looks different. And, trying things, being outside of your comfort zone. I had that conversation a little bit earlier too. Trying things until you find something where you go, this is really for me. This is something I really can get up for every day, and I can put everything into it and leave it all out there, right? That's important, I think. And then, also having the ability to know, hey, that's not going to work for me. I need to kind of pivot this way because this seems better to me. And again, trying different things, right? Yeah, very true. And I will say that we need to make those paid internships, because the people who have the support behind them to do unpaid internships is a specific segment of people who have every other advantage. And when we're thinking about kids who are growing up in lower income communities, primarily people of color, Black and Indigenous folks, people who have been victims of domestic violence or inter-partner violence, there are all kinds of reasons that somebody needs a job. It's great for us to say, you got to find what you love and do that. But for most people, they need to find something that pays their rent. And so doing things up front, early childhood and in the internship space, making those paid, and not just, here's $100 a week, but actually paid what you would pay an employee, so that can be what they do instead of working at McDonald's. Both pay you, but one sets you up for a much different career path than the other. Definitely. I love it. So how do you balance work and life? So I stopped saying work-life balance. I talk about work-life integration. And I think in part it's because of the type of work that I do. So it's not the sort of thing that I mentally or physically leave behind at the end of a 9-to-5 day. But I do have the privilege to choose work that I like to do. I work with people who I really enjoy. I have, over the last decade plus, built out friendships with people that I work with, some in the organization and certainly many others who are in partner organizations. And so when there needs to be a morning or an evening or a weekend or what have you,
it still feels like work. And I will say, when somebody says, "Oh, wow, you get to go to like happy hours and these and all these things," and I'm like, I would really just like to stay home tonight. The sheen comes off a little bit, but I also find time to say, you know what? I'm not going to start until 10 a.m. today, and that's going to be okay. I'm going to work 10 hours either way. So we're going to figure that out. We're going to do things that are recharging and rejuvenating for me as an individual. We're going to do that with our team so that we're all healthy and have relationships where we can be very real about that whole work-life piece, which has become much more, I think, evident. Not important. It was always important, but we got a lot better at it in the last couple of years when suddenly we were all thrust into each other's personal lives.
Right, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about lessons that you've learned that you would like to have other young women, use and apply in their lives.
Yeah, I think, it's really grounded in what we've been talking about, is this idea of being yourself, whatever that means. And it's hard. It's so hard.
It is.
As a young person, as an adult, we are surrounded by people and media and images of success that tell us who we should be. So as much as you can hold on to or return to being yourself and doing things that feed that and feed the community around you, that would be one lesson. And related to that is to surround yourself with people who support it. You can think you want to be in a certain place or I've fallen into this trap of seeing a job that I thought was a step up and so glamorous or something that was going to be admired and thinking, that's what I should want. Even though I realized, no, because I want to be able to have this work-life integration.
Right, exactly.
So being yourself and surrounding yourself with people who help you do that would be probably the biggest thing I would contribute.
And it's not easy, is it?
It's
It's not. So that sounds like advice, too, because, when you look at all of the things that you're going to be dealing with every day in your career. I mean, and again, back to what you said earlier, every day looks a little different. Yep. You never know what you're going to get. And, having the confidence and the wherewithal to know, what, I'm going to work 10 hours. I'm going to start a little bit later today. Sometimes I actually work 14 hours and I'm like, okay, I'm burnt out. And, and I do kind of look at my schedule, which I set my own schedule. A lot of times I'm like, okay, I'm working 14 hours the day before. I got to start a little bit later because I know I'm still going to have to do my email. I'm still going to have to do certain things that I can't be flexible with. But I just can't burn the candle at both ends because then you become ineffective.
Exactly. It's not good for you. It's not good for the people you're working with. You have to have this this long-term perspective.
So a woman in the workplace, other women, tell me what your leadership is. Are you you seem like you're a build up around me kind of woman. But what do you think about the women that come in maybe to the organization or into the partnerships and they're not like that? What are your thoughts about how to handle that?
Yeah, I think this is really true about any individual. But when we think about women in particular, we're still at the very early stages of emerging onto the scene as leaders. Somebody growing up today might think, oh, I see women all around me. But when you actually look at the positions in which women hold leadership, the compensation that women hold in comparison to their counterparts in those positions of leadership, and what we're rewarded for doing or labeled as for doing. So you talk about, the tendency, I think, that you're talking about is the idea to come in and lead in the way that we have seen men lead for decades, hundreds of years. And that works for some folks, and that's great. It goes really wrong for some folks, mostly because then you get labeled as aggressive or all things that are not considered feminine in the societally defined way of the world. So I think what we need to do is just recognize that leadership looks different for everybody, whether you are male, female, you don't identify as a particular gender. Your leadership is your leadership. And so I would say I bring compassion, relationships, teamwork, And that's just me everywhere I go. And so I couldn't lead in any other way because it would be too exhausting because I would be playing the role of somebody else all the time. But that's not for everybody.
Interestingly enough, when you were saying all that, I don't think you use this word, but authentic is kind of really, honestly, in my opinion, what you're kind of getting at. You know, having the being your authentic self and not forgetting what that is and being able to use that in your leadership. And you're right. Every single person looks very, very different. I can tell you, I'm probably the first person that's ever done my job the way that I do my job. And, you know, and for me, you know, I still am feminine and I'm generally the hardest working person in the room. Like I would never ask someone to do something, and you strike me as being a very hard worker too. I think, you know, not forgetting who you are and being able to bring what you bring to the table and being able to celebrate it.
Yeah,
because it is going to be different from everyone else. So when I look at women that, you know, are thinking a certain thing, you know, toward like the mean girls in the room, I look at it and I think, yeah, you know what, just stop. We're here to build each other up because we are so much stronger together as a team, whether we're doing the same job or not, but whether we're trying to get to the same goal. We need to all remember that we've got something to bring to the table and build one another up.
Yeah. And that goes back to this idea of, can we actually reveal ourselves to our colleagues? And I recognize that I work in a unique workplace because people tell me it's unique, but we have a very conscious practice of really being a place where you can be honest about what's happening, whether it's good or it's bad or what have you, and we all come together to problem solve, right? Yeah. And during COVID, I am not a parent, but I work with many people who are, and we had folks whose childcare was, you know, switched on and off almost day to day.
Yeah.
And so we just had to be adaptable to that. Yeah. And I think things like that are recognizing, look, this person is just burnt out. They just need to step away for a day. Like, that is okay. So I think when we talk about sort of a mean girl syndrome, you know, my first reaction is going to be like, can we get past that to say, what is it that you need? Why are you being so mean?
Yeah.
Right? And maybe we can get there without being mean. And maybe they aren't, you know, they don't want to open up, or that's not the issue, or whatever. But, you know, everybody is, like we were saying earlier, trying to get to some goal. Right. And if you have the shared goal, maybe you can build up enough trust to talk about what everybody needs and get there in a better way. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, that is not one of my people. That is not someone who is in my circle of support.
Right. That's a lot of very, very good wisdom right there. Well, thank you so much, Megan. Really appreciate you joining us today. Appreciated the conversation, and I wish you the best of luck. I'm excited to see what you do next.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, it's been great to be here. Come and visit us, and we'll make our way up to North County and continue to do good stuff for one another, our community, and women everywhere.
Great. Thank you.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.